Robots, supercomputers, and all sorts of amazing technologies are the mainstays of science fiction books, movies, and television shows. The stories are usually set in the future, but much of the whiz-bang technology is here right now. And Pedro Domingos is on the cutting edge of much of it. Domingos is a professor of computer science at the University of Washington. He says that engineers are working on creating computers that can teach themselves and other computers, without the aid of humans, using this master algorithm.
An algorithm is really just how we tell computers to do what we want. It's a sequence of instructions, not unlike a cooking recipe, but a lot more detailed and precise. Now, in the old days, human programmers had to write the algorithms line by line. The exciting thing today is that with machine learning, the computers can learn to program themselves. So they write their own algorithms by looking at your data and trying to figure out what you want. And the master algorithm is a learning algorithm that can learn anything from data. Any knowledge, any skill, it can acquire from looking at data.
Domingos goes into the topic in depth in his new book, The Master Algorithm: How the Quest for the Ultimate Learning Machine Will Remake Our World. The data and how much of it the computer needs to learn a particular skill or set of skills depends on what you're asking it to do. Take an online dating site, for example.
Then what the algorithm, for example, might need to look at is things like the profiles of the people and trying to figure out whether they're compatible, or maybe their pictures and trying to figure out what people find attractive in each other, and so forth. And then how much data you need, well, it depends on how complex the thing is that you're trying to learn. So if what you're trying to learn is simple, maybe you don't need a lot of data. If it is very complex, then maybe you do need a lot of data. Like, for example, if you're trying to learn to cure cancer, that is a complex problem, and you are going to need a lot of data. It's not just enough to have a lot of data, it has to be good data. But one thing that learning algorithms are already very good at is kind of getting rid of the noise, getting rid of the garbage, and basically only zeroing in on the data that is actually good and useful.
There are learning machines already in use, and you may have seen one of the celebrity ones on Jeopardy in 2011. IBM's Watson computer beat the show's champions, Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter, scoring more than 3 times better than either human. The computer was programmed specifically for the match, and Domingos says that IBM scientists used a variety of data to prepare the computer for the show.
It learned in 2 main ways. One of the ways that it learned was just by having a database of past episodes of Jeopardy. It basically looked at all of that and learned all those questions and answers, and then tried to generalize from them to the new questions that it might find. So that was one aspect, was the database of past Jeopardy episodes. But another one was, then it was trained by the computer scientists at IBM when it had these candidate answers. And, let's say it finally had 6 candidate answers and it picked answer 1. But the right answer was answer 2. The people at IBM told it that, and, it got a bunch of learning episodes like this and got better as they did more of it.
Watson was a very public example of machine learning, and a lot of it is going on, some behind closed doors, and some right under our noses. Domingos says that medicine is making progress in the diagnosis and treatment of diseases using algorithms, and computers are learning about individual patients by looking through the medical records of millions.
You give the algorithm a database of patient records, like what their symptoms were, what the test results were, and then maybe what the diagnosis was or what the therapeutic was or what surgery they needed. And then what the learning algorithm does is it looks at all those cases and tries to generalize from that and say, for example, this, let's say, breast x-ray, there is a tumor in it, this one there isn't. And then it tries to figure out, how do you look at a breast x-ray and decide that it has a tumor or not? And it does this on its own. So the learning algorithm actually knows nothing whatsoever about the particular disease or condition going in. It basically does it by looking at data. And the amazing thing is that it is often the case that algorithms that learn like this in literally a few minutes actually are more accurate at diagnosing things than doctors who spend many years training.
One thing the machine does better than a human is to remain objective. Domingos says that there's no personality involved in an algorithm that's come up with a diagnosis for a complex disease like cancer.
Humans are extremely inconsistent. If they're in a bad mood, they will give more pessimistic diagnoses. If something else just happened, they might be influenced by it. The algorithms are very consistent. As a result, they can be consistently high quality if they learned well enough, and humans in some sense are more flaky, if you will.
But what about the doctor-patient relationship? Doesn't having a human there to explain and maybe even hold your hand create feelings of comfort and trust?
There's 2 ways that this could go. One is that computers can learn to understand and react to emotions as well. There's already a lot of this going on in research labs, and some of it will happen. So a computer in the future, if it's acting as your doctor, it could provide some of that emotional support. The question, however, is whether you will be satisfied with it. I mean, will you feel that emotional support means anything? If it's coming from a machine, maybe not. In which case, maybe what you will have is it will still be a human doctor talking with you, but they will have made their diagnosis not just by thinking about it themselves, but by largely or even almost entirely relying on the computer.
A place where medical learning machines can excel is in the laboratory. Domingo says that there's one operating right now that has already created a medical breakthrough.
At the University of Manchester, a robot scientist called Eve, that is actually a machine that knows molecular biology. It formulates hypotheses like a scientist. It carries out experiments with DNA microarrays and sequencers to test the hypothesis physically. It's a real robot. It does this completely on its own without any human help, and then it revises its hypothesis and whatnot. So it's doing the whole scientific process all by itself. For example, it recently discovered a new malaria drug. Right now, there's only, this one robot, but you can imagine having a million of them, and now you have a million scientists where before you just, had a few humans.
Robots that teach themselves will come in all shapes and sizes. Domingo says we already have many of them in our midst.
Things like Siri, for example, are a good preview of that. Siri is, has a bunch of learning algorithms that are learning about you, and then you talk to it, and it talks to you. So that's another way in which a learning machine could appear to you. But then over and beyond that, there's going to be a vast number of machines that are learning about you. There already are, and you don't even know. You don't notice. It's like your car is learning about you. It's learning about your driving style in order to, save you gas. It's learning about you in order to find, the best route to where you want to go. So every little device from the smallest to the largest will have these learning capabilities and some degree of intelligence. Some of them you'll be very aware of it and you'll kind of like interact with them as such, and the others you won't notice and, not even necessarily care.
The driverless cars that we've been hearing so much about lately are another type of learning machine that we can look forward to in the future. But with robots working in laboratories, hospitals, driving us where we want to go, taking over manufacturing tasks, what will people do? Are we inventing ourselves out of our jobs?
The jobs that we do are going to change. So some jobs will disappear, but also a lot of new jobs will appear. And many jobs, and I think in the short term, this is actually the bigger part of it, is that it's neither that a job will appear or disappear, it's that it will be changed by learning machines. There will be parts of your job that the machine can actually do very well, and what we actually want to do is we want to, start using machine learning to do those parts of your job, and then you do all of the other things that you actually didn't have the time to do. Think of it as having a horse, right? If you have a horse, you don't try to outrun it, you ride it, and, machine learning is a kind of horse that you can ride, and so what people need to do is learn how best to interact with the learning algorithms that they have in order to do their jobs better.
If there are master algorithms developed, and machines can program other machines and learn so much about us, isn't there a danger that they'll take over, that we'll end up working for them, or worse, being hurt by them?
I think that danger is actually a lot less than people often think when they think of movies like, Terminator and whatnot. The reason is actually quite simple, is that, when we think of intelligent machines, we think of them as being almost human, right? Because intelligence and human, for us are very closely related. But the truth is that being intelligent and being human are very, very different. In Hollywood movies, the robots, and the AIs are always humans in disguise. But the real ones, all that they're really doing is searching for solutions to the problems that we set them. So as long as that's all that they can do, they could be infinitely intelligent and they're of no danger to us. In fact, the more intelligent they are, the better, because they can solve harder problems like curing cancer. I think what we need to do is we set the goals, the AIs go solve the problem, and then we check the solutions. What we can't let is the robots start to set their own goals, like, oh, my goal is to survive and, and proliferate. Well, that's a very dangerous thing to do.
Domingos sees a bigger threat to us from robots and computers, inadvertently harming us in some way.
By not having understood very well what we asked them to do, by not having common sense. And in fact, some of this is already happening, right? Computers already make a lot of important decisions about who gets credit, who gets what job, who gets flagged as a potential terrorist, and they make mistakes. So, people worry that computers are going to get too smart and take over the world, but the real problem is that they're too stupid and they've already taken over the world.
Pedro Domingo says that his goal in writing his book, The Master Algorithm, is not to scare people with a sci-fi version of the future, but to let everyone know that machine learning is here already, and we need to learn how to make the most of it. The book is available in stores, online, and on his website, pedrodomingos.org. For more information about all of our guests, visit our site at viewpointsonline.net. You can find archives of past programs there and on iTunes and Stitcher. I'm Gary Price.
It's open enrollment season, the time of year when employees receive benefit information from their employers. One big tip this year: think broadly. Consider not just the traditional benefits like life and dental insurance, but other products such as auto insurance that more employers are making available. It could save you money. Research from MetLife Auto and Home shows that its customers who bought their auto and home products through the workplace in 2014 saved an average of $500 countrywide. It's fast, easy, and convenient. Thanks to new technology, you can get insurance faster than ever. For example, you can get a binding quote for auto insurance online in as few as 2 minutes. No more answering question after question about your current coverage or old claims. MetLife Auto and Home uses publicly available information and consumer reports to get all that information for you. You simply confirm it during the process. So check with your employer to see if it offers access to cutting-edge products that could save you time and money. And this enrollment season, think broadly, beyond the basics, as you consider your protection needs.